Hello, welcome. My name is Jodi Scholes. I'm your instructor for the MBLEX review course. Yes, this is a course designed to focus your attention. This is a time where we come together to study, to prepare for our national exam. Yes, we all are holding the vision. You can see we've got a lovely group here. All are holding the vision of practicing as a licensed massage therapist. It's very exciting to lend our collective energies to this vision because not only are you holding the vision for you, I'm holding the vision for you. And this community is holding the vision for you. Yes, and these classes go down in 3 rounds. So 3 parts to this class today. The first one is going to be a test taking strategy. What we found is that the many students uh, have great knowledge, but maybe get a little thrown off by this, by this style of exam. And so in the first few minutes of class, I give you some test taking strategy. Then we move into our learning. And today we're doing the shoulder girdle, the shoulder joint. Let me tell you, there was some terms that I looked up this week that I was like, what is that again? So the shoulder joint is going to be our learning today. Kinesiology, movement of the shoulder joint. To do the movement, we're going to need to review the muscles, the joints, and to get familiar with what that shoulder joint actually looks like on the inside. And then after we have reviewed that material, we will go into part 3 of our class, which is dissecting questions. Yeah. So we'll dissect some questions based on the information you're about to learn. All right. So that's how this is going to go down today. All right. The first part of class is always a test taking strategy. And I want to share with you, maybe for the first time, but hopefully as a reminder, that the MBLEX is a computer adaptive test. hmm We recently had a test taker who said, wow, I answered this question about a joint, and I couldn't remember if it was diarthrotic, amniothrotic, synovial, like what type of joint it was. And she said, oddly enough, she goes, I picked one joint, and it's synoarthrotic, I think. And she said the very next question was on the cranium. Well, that's because the computer will adapt. That test is going to adapt to test your knowledge. The question that test taker had been talking about was actually synovial joints, so the freely movable joints, but had gotten sidetracked with these non-movable joints. And so that computer, that test adapted to say, okay, wait a minute, you just picked a cranial joint. Let's ask you a question about the cranial joints. A computer adaptive test does get harder. It can, it adapts. So when you start answering questions correctly, you will get more difficult questions in the same category. And you're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. That's not really fair, is it? It actually, it works to your advantage. And you're like, how does that work to my advantage? It works to your advantage because your goal is to score 630 points. 630 points total. Every question is worth a little bit different value. When you answer a more difficult question, you earn more points. When you answer an easier question, you earn less points. You've got 100 questions to score 630 points. You do need to be at least borderline in every category. Borderline or good in every category. Yeah. Yeah. This is the nature of the computer adaptive test. Some test takers, some graduates of massage school, some massage grads are like, I think the test got harder. You know, some of the questions did get harder. Yes, that's okay. Breathe. You have the tools to deal with these difficult questions. I'm going to prove it to you later when we go into our learning material and when we dissect our questions. There's going to be a few terms, I promise you, today you've never heard of before. But using the tools that you have to breathe and to pull apart the words, I bet you're going to be able to answer those questions. You can apply those same techniques while taking your national exam. Breathe. Stay present. Pull apart the words. Eliminate the wrong answers. Trust your first answer. Yeah. Cool. I'm being called to share with you a little something extra. I mentioned a test taker gave me some feedback this week. That test taker didn't pass the MBLEX this week. And that's super disappointing, right? You build, 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 you think you're ready, and you get there. And maybe you've experienced this. You got there to the testing center and it didn't work out the way you thought. You failed forward, right? And I wanted to share that with you today because we're here for you. We're here for you as a safe place to land. You may not be ready for class the next day. You may not be ready to start studying right again. But when you are, well, just know if it goes too long, we'll come find you. And it's good to feel all the feels, to just experience whatever it is you're experiencing, the disappointment, the sadness. There's a lovely poem that says that the sea creates a sea cave as it carves away the rock. It hits that rock and it carves it away. It hits that rock and it carves it away. And it creates a nice deep sea cave. And the poem says the water is like the sadness. The sadness flows in, but every time that sadness flows in, it carves out a little bit more of that cave, allowing for a deeper expression of joy. And it's true. We have experiences in our life that maybe are disappointing, but I promise you, it's creating a greater capacity for you to feel joy. That depth of disappointment, that depth of sadness, it expands. It expands your capacity to feel. Yeah. Some of us don't like those big feelings, right? Hey, let's stay safe. Let's stay in our lane. You know what? Let's feel some feels. Because when the day comes and you pass the MLEX, you pass your national exam, that's even more capacity for joy. Yeah. So let's prepare for that national exam, shall we? By doing a little learning. This is the review course for kinesiology in the shoulder joint. We're not going to waste any time today. The shoulder joint is a ball and socket joint. It's the joint that occurs between what's called the glenoid cavity and the scapula. The glenoid cavity of the scapula and that proximal end, the upper end of the humerus. So the shoulder joint is actually a ball and socket joint. Today we're going to be talking about movement of the shoulder joint, and I'll remind you, we're talking about the shoulder joint, not the shoulder blade, not the scapula. So be careful on your questions that you are identifying what the question is actually asking you. So the shoulder joint is that ball and socket joint. It is one of the most freely movable joints. It's pretty open. In fact, it's way more open than the hip joint. The shoulder girdle connects our upper limb to the axial skeleton. Got the axial and the appendicular skeleton. The shoulder girdle connects the axial skeleton to our upper limb. And oddly enough, the shoulder joint is also the second most common area of pain. It's responsible for about 20% of musculoskeletal complaints, meaning when someone goes to the doctor and they have pain in their body, about 1 out of 5 times it's in the shoulder joint. Yeah, so about 20% of the time. All right. Shoulder joint is comprised of 3 bones, 3 joints, and 3 groups of muscles. And a few other structures too we'll throw in there. But let's take a look at exactly what this is, where it's located. So here's our shoulder joint. We got 3 bones. Got the ball and socket, but we got something else. Take a peek. So the 3 bones are the clavicle, the humerus, and the scapula. Humerus is easy, right? It's like duh. So humerus, long bone of the upper arm. Head of the humerus creates that ball of the ball and socket. However, the structure here is very interesting because that glenoid cavity, another picture here. Look at how the glenoid cavity is created by the clavicle, by the scapula. You can see here, there's a little pear-shaped divot. So glenoid fossa, depression, the glenoid cavity is a hole, right? So here you see that scapula with the depression, and that's where the head of the humerus articulates. Articulates means moves. The articulation is a joint, a movable joint, or the articulation is where they touch. I say where they chat, where they talk. That's where they actually touch, that articulation. And then the third component here is the clavicle. Clavicle adds a little support there to this structure. So in this image above, you'll see that we're looking at the anterior view here. This is the anterior view. Head of the humerus, proximal head. You'll see something, a bony landmark called the greater tuberosity. Here's that scapula. The depression underneath here is called that glenoid fossa. And you'll see also part of the scapula. Follow me. Well, actually, follow me here. See how this part of the scapula, there's a little hook at the top, a little hooky thing? That's your acromion. Yeah. So the clavicular acromion joint, the AC joint, ends up being right here. The AC joint, the acromion clavicular joint. Very good. All right, this just labels this as the glenoid because we need to know what part of it we're talking about. Is it the fossa? But we'll see more about this. These are the three bones that play a role in your shoulder joint: humerus, scapula, clavicle. And before we leave this picture, what a lovely picture of the ribs, eh? Look at how these ribs attach to the sternum, right? Here's the first rib. And look how close that first rib is to the clavicle. We'll learn later on that the pectoralis minor plays a role here in keeping that clavicle separated from the first rib. But I just think this is such a lovely picture. You can see the sternum, the manubrium, the body. Can't quite see the xiphoid, but this is the sternocostal joints, right? So where the sternum hits the ribs. Yeah, lovely. A little bit of anatomy. All right. The three joints. We had three bones. Now we have three joints. So we've got the the acromioclavicular. Now, you may have never heard of these joints before, right? That's okay. Break them apart. Acromio. That should be EO, I think. Acromioclavicular. Break it apart right there in the middle. Can you see how it would be acromion and clavicle? So we talked about the AC joint when we were looking here, this AC joint. These are the three bones. These are the three joints. So the AC joint is a part of the shoulder joint. The sternoclavicular joint. So the sternoclavicular joint part of that dynamic. And of course, the glenohumeral joint. So this glenohumeral joint, the AC joint. We're going to learn about a few other joints today. Yeah. You see here the scapulothoracic joint? We'll come back to that. But these are the three main joints that affect the function of the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint itself is the glenohumeral joint, but AC is also very important. Okay. Here's a closer look at all of the structures that are involved in the shoulder joint, because that glenoid fossa is really open and wide. So that glenoid, that cavity tends to be pretty open. And so there's lots of fibrous attachments that help to keep that humeral head in place. Here's the humeral head. And now we have a few layers on top here. Here's our AC joint, covered by the AC ligament. Clavicle, acromion. Again, clavicle, clavicle, comes out to the acromion. Good. Get another part of the scapula. It's called the coracoid process. That plays a different role. It's where the coracobrachialis attaches. So coracoid process, another bony landmark. but an attachment site for a muscle. More so, we're looking at those three bones, those three joints. All right, nice picture. Now, let's take a look at the muscle groups associated with the shoulder joint. The first one is called the scapulohumeral group, or SITS, our rotator cuff group. We've got the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. These are our 4 rotator cuff muscles. You will need to memorize these names. You will need to memorize these locations. So the SITS is its acronym: supra, infra, teres, and sub. I believe in this slide group, yeah, I go right on to the next group. Okay, so let's just talk about supraspinatus, infra, teres, and sub. These are all attached around the scapula. Supra, super, it is above the spine of the scapula. Infra, below the spine of the scapula. However, subscapularis, under the scapula. In this posterior view of the scapula, supraspinatus sits above, infraspinatus sits below, teres minor is lateral. Sub is under. It's under the scapula. And even though that sounds cute and that's interesting, you are going to need to commit that to memory. All right. But I mentioned there's 3 muscle groups, and I want to... The scapula, we'll talk about it during the scapulothoracic. Okay. So look at how this is separated to scapulohumeral. Scapulohumeral group. You're not going to hear that, but when you see big, long words, know that you can pull them apart and understand that these are muscles that affect the scapula and the humerus. This is what helps to move the scapula and the humerus. We'll talk more about movement of these muscles in a moment. Let's look at the other 2 groups. We've got an axial scapular group. You're like, oh my gosh, what is that? Well, you know these muscles: the rhomboids, the traps, the serratus, and the levator scapulate. Okay. But if you would have seen the axial scapular group, and you're like, what? These are muscles that help attach the scapula to the trunk. So they help the scapula move around the trunk. So all of these 4 muscles, they are primary movers of the scapula in a particular direction. So I want to just pause there, let you get used to the idea. These are all muscles: the rhomboids, the traps, serratus anterior, and levator scapulae, create movement of the scapula around the axial skeleton, around the trunk. All right, good. Last group, the axial humeral group. These are the muscles that attach the humerus to the axial skeleton. The pectoralis minor and major, and the latissimus dorsi. So the latissimus comes up, grabs a hold of the back of that humerus. And that's why it's responsible for movement of the humerus. Adduction, so depression of the scapulas, adduction of the humerus. All right, I'll get more on that on movement in just a moment. But when you see words like this, be like, what are you talking about? Okay, figure out what they're talking about, right? So axial humeral group. They may throw that at your on your national exam. And you're like, why in the world? I know. It's crazy. But pec minor and major, humerus attached to the humerus. Lats attached to the humerus. All right. Here are these groups. Here are these muscle groups. Today we're talking about movement, so I'm not spending as much time on the anatomy of the muscle. Um, but just again here, see, this is where here's the spine of the scapula. This is the posterior view. Low. So just a quick little jump in here to let you know this is a shortie. This is a short version of the full class. I'm going to put the link to buy the full class in the description if you like it and you want to keep going. But now we're going to transition into dissecting questions because this is a sample. All right. Hope to see you as a member, or hope that you just decide to buy the class. All right. Talk to you soon. This is Jodi, by the way. Super. All right. Here we go. You ready? Gonna go on a little ride with me. Where is the supraspinatus located? Under the scap? Below this, so A, under the scap. B, below the spine of the scap. C, above the spine of the scap. D, on the lateral border of the scap. A, B, C, and D are all locations of rotator cuff muscles. Where is the supraspinatus located? We're going to get rid of one wrong answer. It's not under the scap. Wink, 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 wink. All right. Where is the supra located? Where's the supraspinatus rotator cuff muscle located? B, below the spine. C, above the spine. D, on the lateral border of the scap. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, no. Scaredy cats. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Push enter. Trust your first instinct. Trust your first instinct. I hear some of you second guessing. Let me go to the start. There we go. Ms. V, you got it. Yes. Excellent. Oops, whoops, that was the other answer. That was the other question, Miss V. I haven't seen your answer yet. Sorry. Ms. Meg. Yes. Diane. Yes. Maria, Brienne, and Patithia. Yes. Julia. Yes. Rachel. You nailed it. Diane. You got it. Maria. Yes. Brienne. Good. With Miss V, where are you? Lance, you're in. Lily, yes. Rachel, yes. Tristan, good. Congratulations. Yes, Lisa J, you got it. Ms. V, there you are. Good. And Petithia, uh-huh. Brenda, good. Julia, nailed it. Meg, good. Jennifer, mm-hmm. Black, there you are. Yes. Good, good, good. All right. Best answer. Above the spine of the scap. Supraspinatus, right? Supra. Above. Super, your supervisor is above in the org chart. Yes. So above the spine of the scapula. Yay, yay, yay. Hang in there. Hang in there with me. We're almost done. Marathon day today. What is the primary movement of the supraspinatus? Oh, you lucked out. I already eliminated one wrong answer for you. This is a long, tough question. All right. The primary movement of the supraspinatus. Look at each of these answers. It is written in the affirmative, and it's meant to be an example of how you may want to frame answers. So, what is the primary movement of the supraspinatus? A. The primary action of the supraspinatus is to abduct the shoulder and stabilize the shoulder joint. Ignore that under the scapula thing. B, the primary action of the supraspinatus muscle is to adduct the shoulder and stabilize the shoulder joint. C, we're going to skip that one because I eliminated it for you. The primary action of the supraspinatus is not to flex the shoulder. D, the primary action of the supraspinatus is to horizontally adduct the shoulder and stabilize the shoulder joint. Okay, so this is written in an affirmative way. The primary action of the supra is to abduct the shoulder joint. The primary action of the supra is to adduct the shoulder joint. The primary action of the supra is to horizontally adduct the shoulder. All right, you can eliminate one more. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Got some brave souls answering the question out there. Let's see. Ooh. Tristan, yes. Jessica, yes. Julia, Meg, Diane, Shauna, Lance, Maria, Brienne, Aditya, yes. Lek, yes. Brenda, good. Rachel, good. Yes. Best answer? The primary action of the supra is to abduct and stabilize the shoulder joint. I ignore that under the scapula thing. I think it was a misprint. Good job. Good job. Great work today. Oh my goodness. You're going crazy. You just spent over 90 minutes with me. Goodness gracious. How you feeling? Just do a body check. Give yourself a little wiggle. Oh, yeah. Woo. How's that feeling? This is a measure of your test taking stamina, right? Gonna wrap up this work on the shoulder joint. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to stay on with this group, answer their specific questions. I wanted to just say thank you for making time to study for your national exam, for the NBLEX, for New York, for Canada, for Texas, for Hawaii. I'm so excited for you to give your gift to the world. It really, we need you. We need you. So, my name again is Jodi Scholes. I'm your instructor for the NBLEX review course. Signing off for this week, and we'll see you again soon.